It was a cold and quiet night. The wind blew through the dark forest. John sat alone in his wooden cabin, deep in the mountains. There were no neighbors, no cars, no phones, just silence and the sound of firewood crackling in the fireplace. John was used to being alone. After losing his family years ago, he chose to live far from people. He didn't want noise. He didn't want questions. He just wanted peace. But that night, peace did not come. Knock, knock. Someone knocked at the door. Dodd stood still. He looked at the door. It was almost midnight. Who could it be? He whispered. He slowly walked to the door. He didn't open it right away. He asked, "Who's there?" There was silence for a few seconds. Then a soft voice said, "Please, we need help if I warm your bed. Will you let us stay?" John's eyes widened. The voice was strange, not human. Soft, broken, and shaking, he opened the door, and there she was, a woman. But not from Earth. Her skin was light blue. Her eyes glowed silver. She had long hair that floated like smoke. She was thin, weak, and cold. In her arms she held a small child, no more. Then 6 years old, the child was asleep, or maybe unconscious. John didn't move. He had never seen anything like this. The woman looked at him with tired eyes. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said. "I just want to keep him safe. Please." John looked at the child. His skin was also blue, but brighter. He was shaking from the cold. John stepped back and said, "Come in." She nodded once and entered. John closed the door and quickly added more wood to the fire. The woman sat near the fireplace and held the child close. She didn't ask for food or water. She didn't even speak. She just watched the fire and held the child tight. John brought them a blanket. She took it without saying a word. Minutes passed. John finally asked, "Who are you?" She looked at him. Her eyes were sad, deep, and tired. "I am no one," she said. "I had a name, but I lost it when my home burned." John was confused. "Where are you from?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she said, "I didn't want to come here, but Earth is the last place they won't search. At least, not yet." John sat down near her. "Who's they?" She held the child tighter. "Hunters," she whispered. "They don't sleep, they don't feel, they don't stop." John felt a chill. He had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing like this. "Why you?" he asked. She looked down. "Because of him," she said, nodding at the child. "He's special." John leaned forward. "In what way?" She didn't answer. Suddenly the child woke up. His eyes opened wide, glowing bright white. He looked around, afraid. Then he spoke in a soft voice. "They're coming." The woman held him close. "No, baby, not yet. Just rest." John stood up. He walked to the window. Nothing. Just snow and trees. But in the sky, a strange light flickered. It moved quickly like a shooting star, but then it stopped and hovered. John turned to the woman. "What was that?" She didn't look up. She only said, "They found a trail." John didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. This woman and her child were in danger, real danger. He looked at the child, now asleep again, then at the woman. She was injured. There were burn marks on her arms, scars, old and new. She had been running for a long time. John made a decision. "You can stay," he said. "Just for tonight." The woman looked at him. There were tears in her glowing eyes. She nodded once. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, John didn't sleep. He sat by the fire watching the door, watching the sky. He didn't know who they were. He didn't know what the child could do. But he knew one thing. His life was about to change forever. Morning came slowly. A soft snow was falling outside the cabin. The forest looked peaceful, but John didn't feel peace. He hadn't slept. He sat near the window all night, holding his old shotgun. His eyes were red, his hands cold. Behind him, the alien woman and the child were still sleeping near the fire, wrapped in blankets. They looked almost human, but John knew they weren't. He kept replaying the words in his mind. "They're coming. Hunters." Because of him, John finally stood up. He walked outside, careful not to wake them. The snow crunched under his boots. He walked around the cabin. Then he saw footprints, not his. Not hers, not from Earth. The prints were deep and wide, almost clawed. Whatever made them was heavy. And walking on two legs, John followed the tracks. They stopped just 20 feet away. Then disappeared, as if whatever it was had vanished into thin air. He looked up. The trees were broken. Branches snapped. Something flew away. John felt a chill that wasn't from the snow. He rushed back inside and locked the door. The woman was awake now. She was feeding the child from a small silver bottle. The child still looked weak. John sat across from her. They were here last night, he said. They didn't come in, but they were close. The woman nodded, as if she expected it. They don't always come to kill, she said. Sometimes they just watch. Why? John asked. Why follow you like this? She looked at him for a long moment, then she said, You deserve the truth. John leaned forward. I come from a planet called Galactic. It was beautiful once, green skies, floating rivers. We lived in peace, guided by the elders. But then they came, the hunters, machines from the dark sector. Built without mercy. They had no leader, no heart, no voice. They only follow a signal, and destroy, John frowned. Why would they destroy a peaceful planet? The woman looked at the child. Because of him, John glanced at the boy. Your son? She nodded. He was not born like others. He carries something inside him. A code, a signal. Some say it's ancient. Some say it was given by the stars. The hunters want it. They believe the code can unlock great power, but if they get it, all life in this galaxy may end. John was silent. It was hard to believe, but he saw the fear in her eyes. I escaped during the last attack, she continued. My people died helping us flee. We traveled for weeks, hiding in shadows, until we found Earth. John looked out the window. Why here? Because Earth is not ready, not on the map, not scanned, still hidden from most galactic paths. So, you came here to hide? She nodded, just for a while. Until I find someone who can protect him. John looked at her. Why me? You opened the door. Silence filled the cabin. John stood and paced the room. You brought danger to my home. I brought a child who's scared, she said softly. John stopped. The child looked at him. Those glowing white eyes, so young, but so heavy with fear. Suddenly, the lights flickered, the fire dimmed. The woman stood quickly. They found us. John grabbed his gun. From outside, a low hum began. Like a machine waking up, then a sharp sound, like static, buzzed through the air. The woman grabbed her child and turned to John. We have to leave. Now. There's no road, John said. Only the forest. She opened her hand. A small round crystal floated above her palm. She pressed it to her chest. And then her skin shimmered. Her wounds faded. She stood taller, stronger. John stared. What the hell? She looked at him. No more hiding. Suddenly, a shadow passed the window. Something tall, something metallic. Something not human. John didn't wait. He opened a trapdoor. Under the carpet, an old tunnel from his survivalist days. This way, he shouted. They climbed down fast. As John closed the trapdoor above them, he heard the door explode. Wood cracked. Metal slammed. They were too late, but at least they weren't inside anymore. In the tunnel, the woman held the crystal. It glowed faint blue. The child whispered something in a strange language. The glow grew stronger. What did he say? John asked. She looked at him. He said, The code is waking. John felt a deep fear. But also something else. Wonder. The boy wasn't just special. He was changing, and whatever was coming next would change everything. The tunnel was cold and narrow. John led the way, holding a small flashlight. Behind him, the alien woman carried her child, who still looked weak. The glowing crystal in her hand lit the path softly, like moonlight. Above them, the sound of metal. Footsteps echoed. The hunters had entered the cabin. John's heart pounded. He had never felt fear like this. Not even during the war, he whispered. Where does this tunnel lead? To the woods, John replied. About half a mile out. The woman nodded. The child looked up at John and spoke in a soft voice. One is still near. John stopped walking. He turned back, flashlight shaking in his hand. What did he say? The woman answered quietly, they left one behind. A scout. It's waiting. John swore under his breath. He knew the woods. But now the trees hid more than deer and birds. Now they hid monsters. They kept walking. Each step deeper into darkness. The air grew colder. The walls dripped with water. Suddenly, the tunnel shook. Dust fell from above. A loud sound thundered through the earth. Boom! What was that? John asked. They've found the cabins. Energy mark, the woman said. They're scanning. Scanning for what? For us. John cursed again. Minutes later, they reached the tunnel's end, a steel door. John turned the old wheel and pushed it open. Snow hid his face. They had come out behind a hill near the frozen stream. Trees surrounded them. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. John helped them out of the tunnel. We need to move fast. He said. They started running through the snow. Suddenly, the child stopped. He pointed to the sky. John looked up. A black shape hovered above the trees. It wasn't big, but it was fast. A drone. It saw them. A red light blinked under its body. Locked. The woman shouted, "Run!" John grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. The child kept up, faster than expected. The drone followed. Then it fired. Zap! A red beam hit the tree beside John. It exploded into flames. They kept running. John turned and fired his shotgun. The shot missed. But the sound made the drone rise higher. Suddenly, the woman stopped. She raised her hand. The crystal in her palm flashed bright. The drone froze in the air. Then, it cracked. Sparks flew, and it dropped to the ground. John stared. You did that? The woman looked weak again. Yes, but I can't do it twice. Not today. John nodded. No time for questions. They kept moving. After 10 minutes of running, they reached an old shed. John had built it years ago to store tools. They ducked inside. The woman sat down, breathing hard. The child curled beside her. John looked out through a broken wooden plank. No more drones. No more sounds, but he didn't trust the silence. He turned to the woman. Why don't they just come and take you? They can't teleport near the child, she said. His code bends space. It makes them slower. That's why they use scouts. John sat down beside her. What does the code do? The woman looked at her son. He doesn't know yet. But the code inside him is alive. It chooses. It grows. It may become a weapon. Or a miracle. John looked at the boy. The child was now drawing shapes in the dirt. Circles, symbols, stars. Is he doing that on purpose? The woman shook her head. He dreams while awake. Sometimes the code speaks through him. John was about to say something when he heard footsteps. Heavy, slow, not human. The woman stood up fast. They found us. A tall shadow passed outside the shed, then another, then silence. John held his breath. The child whispered something. Suddenly, the wall exploded. A metal hunter stepped through. 7 feet tall, black armor, no face. Just a blinking red eye. It raised its arm. A cannon charged. John fired his shotgun. The shell hit the hunter's shoulder. It didn't fall. It only turned its eye toward John. The woman jumped in front. She raised her hand, but the crystal did not glow. She was out of power. The hunter fired. And then everything froze. Literally. The air turned to mist. The snow stopped falling in midair. Even the fire in the broken wall hung still. Time had stopped, except for the child. He stood up. Eyes glowing white, he raised one hand toward the hunter. A pulse of light came from his palm. Not fire, not electricity. Just light. The hunter shattered like glass. Time resumed. John gasped. The woman fell to her knees. Tears in her eyes. It's starting, she whispered. The child looked at John. Thank you for not running. He said. John couldn't speak because now he understood. This was no ordinary child, and the real chase was only just beginning. The shed was silent. Snow blew in through the broken wall. Ash from the destroyed hunter floated in the air. John sat in shock, staring at the child who had just stopped time. The boy stood quietly, looking at his hands, glowing with soft light. He didn't seem scared. He didn't seem proud. He just looked confused. John turned to the alien woman. She was on her knees, crying silently. For the first time she looked like a mother, not a warrior, not a survivor. Just a tired woman holding on to the last thing she loved. John finally spoke. What was that? The woman wiped her eyes, stood up, and looked at John. That, she said, was the beginning of the end? John frowned. Explain. The woman took a deep breath. You've seen hunters. You've seen what they do, but they're not the true danger. John waited. She continued. My son is not just a child. He is a Keyburn, the first in many generations. Inside him lives an ancient code written by something older than time. Older than time? John asked. The woman nodded. Before planets, before stars. There was the core, a living intelligence that created balance in the galaxy. When it died, it left behind a piece of itself. A seed, she pointed to the boy. That seed is now inside him. John looked at the child again. The boy was drawing symbols in the snow. Not childish drawings, but circles, patterns, language, and they glowed. Why him? John asked. No one chooses to be Keyburn, the woman said. They are chosen. By the seed, by the core. She looked down, her voice softer. I was not born his mother. John blinked. What? The woman smiled sadly. I was a soldier. One of many sent to protect ancient ruins on Valerix. That's where I found him, crying, alone, wrapped in golden cloth. He was only days old, but the ruins lit up when he cried. She paused. I didn't understand it then. But the elders did. They said he carried the code. They told me to run. To protect him, even if it meant dying. John asked, So, you became his mother? She nodded. I had no choice. The moment I held him, I felt it, like the code reached into me. Like I was meant to guard it. John was silent for a long moment. He looked at the child again. The boy had now stopped drawing. He was staring into the sky, eyes glowing faintly. Suddenly, the ground rumbled. Boom. John stood. What now? The woman closed her eyes. They're coming faster now. The signal is active. Every time he uses the code, more of them feel it. She opened her eyes. We don't have much time. John stepped closer. So what's the plan? Keep running forever? The woman shook her head. No, we need to go. To a place where the signal can be controlled. Where? A crash site on this planet. John blinked. A crash on Earth? Yes, long ago, a ship from Valerix fell here, buried deep beneath ice and stone. Inside it is a veil. Engine. It can shield the code signal. Why didn't you go there first? I couldn't find it. Not until the boy awakened the code. She turned to her son. He knows where it is now. The boy nodded slowly. I see it. In my dreams. John looked around. We need a vehicle. I can help, the boy said. He stepped forward, held up his hand, and touched the broken metal from the hunter. The metal floated into the air. It bent, shifted, joined with other parts. Within seconds, a new shape formed, a small hover sled. John's jaw dropped. He built that? The woman smiled. Not built, reshaped. The code remembers things. It learns fast. John touched the hover sled. It buzzed with energy. We'll move faster now, the woman said. But the hunters, they'll follow, she said. But if we reach the crash site first, we can hide him. Maybe even end this. John looked at her. End it how? If the code is planted inside the Veil engine, it can release a signal, one that confuses all hunters, breaks their link. Shuts them down. John nodded slowly. So, your son could save Earth? Not just Earth, she said. The galaxy. They loaded the sled with supplies. The woman sat in the back with her son. John took the front. Before starting, he turned around. What's his name? The woman looked at her son, then at John. He doesn't have one. John thought for a moment, then smiled. He saved me. He saved you. He's about to save a lot. More? He turned back to the sled's controls. Let's call him Hope. The woman's eyes filled with tears, and then the sled lifted into the sky. Behind them, shadows moved in the trees. The hunters were coming, but now they were not running anymore. Now they were heading toward destiny. The hover sled moved fast through the snowy forest. The wind hit John's face as trees passed in a blur. Hope sat quietly between his mother's arms, eyes closed, glowing faintly. His body looked still, but inside him, something powerful was waking. John checked the scanner on the dashboard. A soft beep repeated every few seconds. "They're still behind us," he said. The woman didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the sky. She could feel them, like cold hands reaching from above. "How far is the crash site?" John asked. Hope opened his eyes slowly. 2 hours, if we don't stop." John pressed harder. The sled gained speed. The forest began to thin. The trees grew shorter. The ground turned icy. Mountains appeared in the distance, sharp and dark like claws. Somewhere beneath them, the lost ship slept and waited. But the hunters were not sleeping. Suddenly, the scanner beeped faster. Red dots appeared on the screen. 3, then 5, then 8. "They've surrounded us," John said. "They're closing in fast." The woman leaned forward. "They're forming a ring. They want to trap us." A low hum filled the air. Then the first blast. Boom. A blue beam hit the ground just behind the sled. Snow flew high. Ice cracked. John swerved. "They're firing." Another beam cut through the air, missing them by inches. Hope didn't speak. He just stared forward, hands gripping the side of the sled. The woman stood up. Holding tight to the sled's frame, she raised her hand. The crystal in her palm flickered with weak light. Then she closed her eyes and whispered something in her language. Around them, trees bent, branches twisted unnaturally. A sudden fog rose from the ground, thick and fast. "We're hidden." "For now," she said, falling back into the seat. She was sweating, pale. "You okay?" John asked. She nodded weakly. "But I can't do it again. That fog drained me." The sled moved through the mist. But they could still hear it, the hunters, their engines, their metal limbs. Their soulless march. Hope opened his eyes wide. "They're changing tactics," he said. "How do you know?" John asked. "I feel it." Suddenly, a shadow above. John looked up. A massive shape flew overhead. It wasn't a drone. It was something bigger. A hunter dropship. "Brace yourselves." John shouted. The ship dropped the pod in front of them. It crashed into the ground, throwing ice into the air. From the smoking crater, a tall figure climbed out. Dark metal, 4 arms. Red glowing eyes. It was not a scout. It was a commander. John tried to steer around it, but it raised one arm and fired a net made of energy. The sled crashed. It flipped twice before sliding into ASNOBUBNK. Everything went white. John opened his eyes first. His head hurt. Blood dripped from his forehead. He looked back. The woman was trying to get up. Hope was unconscious. His light dimmed. The commander was walking toward them. Slow, steady. The ground cracked beneath its steps. John pulled his shotgun. He fired. Boom! The shell hit the commander's chest. No damage. It kept walking. The woman stood between it and Hope. She raised her hand. The crystal didn't glow. She was out of power. The commander raised all 4 arms. Each one powered a weapon. John screamed, "No!" He ran forward, ready to die fighting. Then Hope opened his eyes. The world went silent. Wind froze. Snow hung in the air. Time stopped again, but this time only around them. John kept moving. So did the woman. Hope stood up slowly. His eyes weren't white anymore. They were golden. He walked past his mother, past John. And stood in front of the commander. With one hand, he touched its chest. The hunter shook violently. Cracks appeared across its armor. Lights blinked. Energy sparked. Then it collapsed, shut down. Time returned. The air rushed in. John looked at Hope. The boy turned slowly. "I'm not just the keyburn," he said. "I am the code now." The woman dropped to her knees. She was crying, but not from fear. She was proud. John looked at the commander's broken body. "This changes everything," he said. Hope nodded. "They'll send more, stronger ones." "How long do we have?" the woman asked. Hope looked toward the mountains. "They're already waiting for us at the crash site." John cursed under his breath. "So it's a trap?" Hope nodded again. "But we must still go. That ship has the Veil engine, and if we don't reach it, Earth will burn." John stared at the boy. He wasn't a child anymore. He was something else, something the galaxy hadn't seen in a very long time. Hope turned toward the sled. It was damaged, but still working. He raised his hand, and with a soft hum, it repaired itself. "Let's go," he said. John smiled. "Now I'm really starting to believe in you, kid." They climbed back onto the sled. And headed into the dark mountains. Toward the final war, the mountains stood tall like frozen giants. Sharp peaks cut the sky. The wind screamed through stone tunnels. The hover sled moved slowly now, climbing rough, icy paths. John kept both hands tight on the controls. Each turn was dangerous. One mistake, and they would fall. Behind him, the alien woman sat quietly. She held her son, Hope, close, though something had changed. Hope wasn't sleeping. His eyes were open, still golden, still glowing, but his face looked older. Not in years, in silence. He hadn't spoken since destroying the Hunter commander. John finally broke the silence. "You okay, kid?" Hope blinked slowly. "I see everything," he said. John frowned. "What does that mean?" Hope looked up. "At the sky, I see the stars before they were born. I see my people before they forgot who they were. I see the code." Inside me, growing, John looked in the rearview mirror. Even the woman was watching her son now, not like a child, but like something holy. "What's happening to him?" John asked. She answered softly. "The core is waking inside him. He's becoming what the galaxy once feared and hoped for." John shook his head. "Then we'd better reach that crash site before it finishes waking up." Hope spoke again. "It's not just waking up," he said. "It's calling others." The woman's face grew pale. "What do you mean, others?" Hope turned his eyes toward her. "There are more like me, lost, sleeping, waiting. When I fully awaken, they will too." John's hands tightened on the controls. "And the hunters?" Hope closed his eyes. "They will change, adapt. Some already have." As if to prove his words, the sled suddenly jerked sideways. Boom! A blast shook the mountain trail behind them. John swerved hard. From the sky above, two dark shapes dropped toward them, new hunter drones, sleeker, faster. Each had long arms and wings folded tight to their backs. John shouted, "They've evolved." The woman stood up in the sled, grabbing the edge. She shouted something in her native tongue. A soft blue shield formed around the sled, but it flickered, too weak. The hunters dove. One fired a sharp blue spike. It missed, but barely. The other fired a thin beam that sliced through a tree beside them. Hope remained still. Then he opened his mouth. Sound came out, not a voice, but a vibration, a frequency. The air itself trembled. Above them, the first drone paused, confused. Its wings twitched. Lights blinked randomly. Then it fell from the sky like a dead bird, crashing into the rocks below. The second drone backed off. John stared. "Was that your voice?" Hope nodded slowly. "I spoke in the code," he said. "It speaks to machines." John shouted, "Then tell the other one to back off." Hope shook his head. "It's learning. It knows now." "It has blocked me." As he said this, the second drone fired again. ZZZ. The shield broke. The sled side exploded. Sparks flew. They spun off the path, sliding down an icy slope. John couldn't stop it. They crashed into a narrow crevice. Hidden between black cliffs, the sled was broken. John coughed, pulling himself out. The woman was already up, helping Hope out of the wreck. "Is everyone okay?" John asked. Hope looked at his hand. "Blood, just a little. I'm not human," he said calmly. "I'll heal." John looked around. Above them, the drone circled. "We have to move. Now." The woman pointed ahead. "There," she said. "The crash site is close. I feel the signal." They ran deeper into the crevice. The drone followed, unable to enter the narrow space. But it fired blasts to block their path, exploding stone, throwing smoke. Finally, they reached it. A wide cavern, hidden in the mountain's heart. There it was, the ancient Galactic ship. Silent, broken, covered in ice. It looked like a fallen star. Hope stepped forward. The ship glowed faintly. It responded to him. The woman gasped. "He's opening it." A ramp slid down from the ship's side. Hope walked in without fear. John and the woman followed. Inside. It was dark, but warm. Lights blinked softly. Machines hummed with life. The center of the ship. A crystal pedestal stood. Hope touched it. The entire ship lit up. The walls showed stars. Planets, galaxies. A voice spoke, not from speakers but from the air itself. Core fragment detected. Identity confirmed. Keyburn accepted. Hope stepped back. John whispered, "What is this?" The woman replied, "The Veil engine." "It's ready." Hope placed both hands on the crystal. His body glowed. Light ran through the ship. The machines came to life. Shields formed. Power surged, but something else happened too. Outside. The drone screamed. It didn't retreat. It called others. From the sky. 10 more came, then 20. They were no longer scouts. They were soldiers, and they were angry. John looked at the glowing boy. "Can he handle this?" The woman answered. "He has to. Because the real war begins now." The old alien ship shook with power. Blue light pulsed through its walls. Symbols lit up on every surface. Ancient, unreadable, but alive. Hope stood at the center of the ship, his hands on the glowing crystal. His body floated just a few inches above the ground. His eyes shone like suns. John and the alien woman stood nearby, watching. Neither of them spoke. Outside, the war was coming. Dozens of hunter drones swarmed over the mountains. Larger machines flew behind them, carriers, tanks, even a command-class hunter the size of a house. Their red eyes locked onto the ship. The signal from the code was now fully awake, and they were here to destroy it. John checked his weapon. It felt small now, useless. The woman stood still, her face calm but tense. Inside the ship, Hope began to speak. But his voice was not just sound, it was music, wind, thunder. "I feel them," he said. "They are afraid." John looked at him. "They don't look afraid." "They fear what they can't control," Hope replied. The woman stepped forward. "Can you stop them?" Hope paused. "I can." John let out a breath of relief. "But..." That one word stopped everything. John looked up. "But what?" Hope turned toward him. "If I release the full power of the code, the hunters will shut down, but I will not survive." Silence. The woman froze. John shook his head. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," Hope said softly. "I'm not just a child. I'm a door. If I open completely, they fall, but so do I." The woman's hands trembled. "I didn't protect you all this way, just to lose you." Hope walked to her and touched her hand. "You didn't lose me. You gave me purpose." John stepped back. He didn't know what to say. He had fought, he had run, he had protected. But he never imagined this would be the price. Hope turned to the crystal again. "I can give Earth peace, maybe even the galaxy." The woman dropped to her knees. Tears rolled down her cheeks. John looked at the swarm of enemies on the screen. Time was running out. "Then let me do it," John said suddenly. Both turned to him. "Let me take your place. Use me, use my life." Hope smiled kindly. "You don't carry the code, only I can release it." The ship's walls began to shake. A warning flashed in ancient letters. "Enemy breach imminent." John slammed his fist against the wall. "There must be another way." Hope walked toward him. "You showed me what kindness looks like," he said. "You let us in. You gave us warmth. You believed." John's voice cracked. "I didn't know I'd be giving you up." "You're not," Hope said. He stepped back to the crystal. The entire ship grew bright. The ground rumbled. Outside, the first hunter fired. A blast hit the ship, but the shield held. Hope raised both hands. "I'm ready." The woman rushed to him. "No, please." Hope looked into her eyes. "I was never yours by blood, but you gave me something stronger, love." She hugged him, tight, one last time. "Then take this," she whispered. She pressed the broken crystal from her necklace into his hand. It glowed, warm, familiar. Hope smiled. He turned toward the core. The room pulsed. Light filled the chamber. Outside, the sky changed. The hunters stopped mid-flight. The drones froze. Their red lights blinked, then dimmed one by one. They fell. The ground shook as machines collapsed like puppets with cut strings. The command class hunter screamed, then cracked, and shattered into dust. The mountains fell silent. Inside the ship, the crystal-dimmed hope was gone. The pedestal was empty. The code had completed its final act. John fell to his knees. The woman said nothing. Her face was wet with tears, but peaceful. A moment later, a single spark floated from the crystal. Small, gold, alive. It floated into the woman's hand. She gasped. John looked at it. "What is that?" She smiled. "A seed." The ship spoke. Again, new core identified, awaiting rebirth. John stood slowly. "He's not gone?" She nodded. "Hope never dies. He's just sleeping again, waiting for the next beginning." Outside, the snow began to fall gently. The sky was clear. The war was over. John looked at the mountains. The world looked different now. Quiet, free. He turned to the woman. "What happens now?" She looked up at the stars. "Now, we live and we protect the seed until the galaxy is ready again." John nodded. He finally understood. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the loudest power. Sometimes hope comes not from strength, but from sacrifice. And sometimes opening your door to a stranger changes everything.